I think it is going to work. It actually is going to work. Guys, it worked. Hooray! The internet's not broken.
Sorry for that.
Yeah. So, you want us to scoot over with you?
Oh,
All right, you coming back? What's going on, guys? Don't what?
Sideways on this one. That's weird.
Sideways.
Yeah, we're reversed. Anyway.
Whoa, we are.
How you going, guys?
Yeah. Well, guys, it's like the first ever live stream with Ben. So,
Not really. I've been on a little bit.
But the first one that you were intentionally on.
Right. So, what's going on, Mossbacks? I am off work for the week because I am going to be working on the build-out up at the Foundry, as I think we're tentatively calling it, just for funsies.
Yeah, we're calling the new place the Foundry at the moment.
Because we like names, and we don't really care about them being accurate, just as long as they feel good to us. And I like the idea of the Foundry. It sounds good. It sounds very industrial, and we will be forging our mushrooms up at the Foundry. Forging the mushrooms at the Foundry. So Andrew likes to do these streams, and he reads off your comments one by one. I just don't have the patience for that, so I was just going to sit here and have a chat with Andrew, and if you guys wanted to be part of it, and if somebody says something that I actually think is worth responding to, then I might do so. But beyond that, for the most part, this is really just for my funsies, and Andrew wanted to play along, so that's that.
How does anyone like you, Ben?
I wonder the same thing.
Oh, man. Okay. Well.
So, I wanted Andrew to kind of kick things off with a discussion that we were having the other day. A few years ago, you did a post about the importance of working backwards, and you were just talking about a connection that you made with your dad teaching you to count money when you were younger. So kicking that off, go for it.
Okay. So somebody said my kind of guy.
Yeah. What's up, Nancy?
So I was over at my dad's office the other day, and he was teaching his secretary how to count backwards. And it's interesting because he would always say, work backwards. And you and I talked about this, the importance of working backwards before, and like you said, I wrote that blog post about how I think it's best to start with, growing mushrooms, get those early successes, and then work your way back into the lab work, even though the lab work's kind of the sexiest part. It's really I think it is, but it is definitely the hardest to profit from and the hardest one to get right. And so you don't get any of those early successes. And then with that, and so with that, being over at Dad's office and he's teaching his secretary, and she's just like, "What are you talking about?" Because somebody will
explain what you mean by counting money backwards.
So by counting money backwards, let's say that just for a really simple explanation, somebody pays, they buy insurance for $84, right?
Okay.
They pay with a $100 bill. So Dad starts off. Oh my gosh, if I can even remember how to do it. This was drilled in my head, but math has always been my least strong suit. But you'll take that 100 and then you'll start at 84 and you count yourself back to the 100 given the change.
Okay.
And it's weird and it doesn't make any sense the first time you do it. But eventually it makes a whole lot of sense because it is a lot faster to count. So Dad is always handling a ton of money that flows through that office. He always likes to say none of it's his, but that he's just a conduit for it. But he ends up, yeah, right. That's anytime you own a business. Right. I've never seen so much money in my life. I just don't get to keep any of it. But she eventually she's been getting it. She's like, oh my gosh, it is a lot faster. And so that working backwards, I don't know, you're the one that kind of came up with the concept for working backwards from a mushroom perspective, but it clicked with me really easily. And it wasn't until I was over at Dad's office and I saw him training her how to count backwards to give change that it really clicked to me oh, I've been actually taught the work backwards method since I was a child. Not only in that, but all kinds of stuff. Gramps would do the same thing when we were out there. He would always take us and start kind of at the easiest point of entry and then work back more to the more technical stuff every time we did anything. I mean, it's very it's a very natural way of learning because you do that as a child. You don't learn syntax and everything else. You learn very simplistic sentences and everything else, and you work your way backwards into the more technical aspects of language. And so, I don't know. I just feel like it's a more natural way to go.
Okay. And everyone wishes they had a Ben. You had fans, they blow that air in your room. Do you have issues with dates staying all night when they see your bed as a coffin?
Yeah, okay. So I wasn't.
I hate you so much.
Ben does not like me talking about his personal life, so thanks for getting me in trouble even further, Robert.
So, contrary to popular belief, I am not a vampire.
Fair enough.
What's going on from Pakistan? I'm sure we missed a whole bunch of comments, but like I said, I just don't care.
There was someone saying that now there's 2 beards, and so I was like, yeah, the power continues to grow.
Yeah. So at my full-time job, I used to have to shave because I had to wear a respirator, and I didn't have the option of the full face that Andrew has, that he packs his beard up inside and looks all curly and neat. So I had to shave, and now I've stepped up into management, and I got an official exemption, and so now I don't have to shave, and it's beautiful.
It is nice. It's like a status symbol.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now I get to walk among the floor and just look down upon all the lowlies who have to shave still, suckers. At least once a year.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so it's important to me. But anyway, so I'm sure most of you guys are at least basically familiar with Stephen R. Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. 7
Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah, I think you're right.
I've never read it because I don't do that. But one of the 7 habits is begin with the end in mind.
Oh, okay.
And
makes sense.
So I'm familiar with the general idea of all of that, but I think it's important to start where it's like you said, where the highest value extraction is.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically with the working backwards idea, we broke it down to the mushroom value chain. I think it was in the post I wrote, Hard Truths, that discussed the actual value chain.
Oh man, I always forget to tell you guys about that one. Yeah, Hard Truths it's easily the first badass picture I've ever seen of Ben.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But the main thing is that the most important thing is if you don't know how they finish, if you don't know the end, then the rest of the value chain just is nebulous. It's all about the mushroom and having that delivered to the customers. And so when possible, I think it's the best way to start is to get fruiting blocks that you then just have to fruit, and then work on building your delivery mechanism. Of course, if you're selling through a distributor, then that makes no sense because you'll make basically no profit. But then, as I discussed in that blog post a few years ago, once you have that delivery network in place, and really even before that, then I think it's important to start building your own blocks and ordering in spawn. That's kind of the sweet spot that I see as where you get the highest value for the total amount of infrastructure that you have to do. And, for a lot of you guys, you're already growing. And so not like it really makes a big difference for you, but I just thought that was an interesting conversation. I saw something about an economy. Thoughts about convincing a bank that this is a good business idea, even in a bad economy.
It's Ben Dooley.
Oh, hey.
Sporadic, yeah. What's up, Ben?
I don't know. We don't really work too much with the bank.
Yeah.
We've built the business on cash flow and personal investment. As far as all that, I have zero experience with any of it. So good luck, Ben. You're the Ben to talk to when it comes to that.
Yeah, maybe you can let us know.
Right. Yeah. Once you fight through those waters, give us a heads
That's right. Your turn, buddy. That said, I mean,
Our investment is in infrastructure, taking small amounts of cash and then doubling that, and then letting it build and snowball upon itself.
Yeah, that was how we started. Andrew, I think we still have the plastic shelf that Andrew started growing on. It's down in the incubation room right now.
Yep, it's that white one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Samantha was still working full time. This is before I was in the picture at all. But Andrew just started growing kits from Fungi Perfecti and just was fruiting them on this little shelf, spraying them by hand.
I wrapped it with saran wrap.
Yeah.
Except the front, I kind of just draped it so I could open it up and spray with a little cleaner, but it was with just water.
Yeah, and then just went from there. And then when I came back to town, I remember seeing Andrew stuffing these turkey fryer pots by hand with chopped straw.
Oh my gosh, it was the worst. It wasn't even really that chopped.
Right.
It was lightly.
Oh, you're right. You're like,
I ran over it with a lawnmower like once, I think.
Yeah, it was the worst.
We would lay the bale out in the yard, and then we would run over it.
Hey, Wayne. Oh, sorry.
A push mower. And then you would gather it all up and then put it in the pot, which was a turkey fryer. We bought 2 because it was the cheapest, most effective thing out there.
Well,
and there was a 15-minute timer on the thing.
There was, so I had to go out there every 15 minutes and turn the timers.
Crank the timers. Like the best thing that I ever did up to that point was I just wired the timers open to where it would just run for the whole. How long did you run it? Like 90 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
It was longer than that. I think
it was ridiculous.
Well, it was for the. You're thinking about the 55-gallon drum I was doing. Ben ended up jerry-rigging the timers to where the timers wouldn't. They would just always be cranked with just a little bit of wire.
That's just what I do. Is I just think, what's a simple way to just make this better?
Gosh.
But yeah, then from there we got the 55-gallon drums and we started doing the mass soaking a whole bale at once, and then realized that straw was literally the devil, and we disassociated ourselves with that.
I hate straw.
And kudos to TR Davis and popularizing the Masters mix.
Oh my gosh. Well, because we actually did switch over to sawdust and wheat bran for a while, but hand scooping that was still so slow. Let's see, it was still so slow that we were still doing straw for oysters.
Right.
And because the yield for wheat bran is still not that great on oysters for whatever reason. For shiitake, it's great, but when it comes to oysters, it's not all that great. And so we were still doing straw, even though we had supplemented. And then finally, TR got the Masters mix going on, so that made a big difference. But hey, Wayne, thanks for stopping in, man. I'm glad that we have a moderator in the house. I'm sure we'll have the trolls coming in soon.
It's got to work, not look pretty. I agree, Wayne.
Yeah. Wayne knows what's up. Let's see. Spore Addict says federal interest rate is at an all-time low. 1% would love to get in on that, but I guess a poor economy makes it even harder to convince a bank to invest in you.
Could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, man. Really don't know. I don't know how all that goes. Like, I stay as far away from authority as possible. We all took a personality test, and in that personality test, politeness was a score, and politeness is basically respect for authority, and I got a 0. So
yeah.
I always try to stay away from government and regulation as much as possible.
Yeah. So that's a big part of why we've just bootstrapped this whole thing. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about was just the importance of infrastructure.
Oh gosh, yeah. So this was something I've always been really weak on.
Yes.
Like horrendously so. And Ben used to come try to convince me to invest in infrastructure. Like, look, man, don't get 30 ducks if you don't have a duck house to put them in.
Yes.
Why would you get 30 ducks and then just try to make a duck house?
And figure out how to deal with them after the fact.
Right. So
and that's something I see. Like, it's,
oh gosh, yeah.
It's the craziest thing. But this plays into this whole thing about begin with the end in mind, is that you've got to be able to see, at least to some degree, where you're going, and figure out what kind of infrastructure you've got to have in order to support that.
because it just saves your bacon so often because it makes it easy. Like if I can just wake up every day and do the same like light job over and over again, and it creates a profit.
Right.
That's killer. Like I don't understand why I fought it so long, but I'm a lover of infrastructure now.
And that's because the reason why I'm part of this company is I saw Andrew suffering and Samantha suffering through him. And I decided that I was just going to start building stuff for them. And then at some point, after their entire business had changed, they're like, well, I guess we probably ought to just bring Ben on board, like legitimate. Yeah. And so now I guess I'm a mushroom guy. Mostly it's just because I like these guys, and they were really bad at what they were doing at the time.
That's that Fisher said, who you call it a troll. Not you, Seth. You sell me bags. You're whatever you want to be. So real quick, I saw Ben's question here. He said, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think this is a recession-proof industry from a bank's perspective? This is a high-risk business in a bad economy. Would you say otherwise? And so let's see. I'll tell you what I'm doing. A lot of the guys that I know are backing off. Like some guys cutting down to 33% production. I'm doubling down. And I can't tell you if that's a good idea or not. And I don't recommend
take that as any kind of business
advice. Don't take that as business advice. But I think that the local food chain is going to be far more important in 2 weeks than it's ever been.
Now, one thing to consider there is that we know Knoxville.
Right. We don't know the entire rest of the country.
And we've discussed the whole tier system as far as what I divided the mushroom market into. And
can you go real quick, just so people who are new.
And this isn't anybody else's classification. This is something I just came up with myself in order to be able to talk about what I was seeing. I think it's useful to classify in order to be able to fully explore an idea. And I got this from Clayton Christensen. He died just earlier this year, but he's one of my heroes. And he was so effective at exploring an idea and delving into it. But anyway, that's just an aside. But the tier 1 farm is a farm that grows their own mushrooms, delivers them, focuses on the fast turnaround mushrooms that don't have as good a shelf life and they don't ship very well. And the philosophy that I have behind that is that you have a geographic isolation.
Yeah, you're insulated from the markets.
Yeah. And so you get to look back in history. There's a fellow I follow also, his blog, Strategery. His name is Ben Thompson, and he dissects the tech market, and he also does a lot of theoretical divisions and classifications. But he's gone into aggregator theory, and he discusses the disruption of the newspaper industry. And what's interesting about the mushroom world is that we can look back at that time when you had local monopolies, basically, of newspapers. They had a geographical reach of how far a newspaper could be delivered effectively in a day.
Right. I remember you talking to me about this specific.
Yeah. And shipping has gotten a lot better. So you can get the New York Times anywhere in America, and I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but then digitally you can get it anywhere.
Right. Which is also why there are fewer local newspapers than ever, and the ones that do exist are typically owned by the same conglomerate that owns the New York Times.
And ultimately, I think that the same issue, we're going to run into the same thing with the mushroom industry, but we're insulated because there's an actual physical degradation of the product.
Right.
And so I think we still have a better part of a decade, would be my guess, before logistics catches up to the point where you can have like just-in-time delivery with a highly perishable food product.
Right.
So we have a little while to to work on this problem.
Well,
but
those
it
who
is
get-
a problem that's going to come around.
It is, and those who get established will either A, get bought out, or B, carve out a niche for themselves,
Right.
or C, kind of like what we're doing with the warehouse. Like we're going to start growing some tier 2 mushrooms
Yep.
alongside. So at that point, it is much easier for us from as a tier 1 farm
Because
So
we
then-
have the customer relationships ourselves.
Exactly.
Directly. And so Andrew was actually talking about this. There are some mushroom growers right now with the coronavirus going on that are having to cut back because they've only lost 1 or 2 customers, and that's 60 to 70% of their total volume.
Right.
Whereas we were very careful not to put all our eggs in one basket, and so we manage all of our customer base ourselves.
Right. So that's actually a question I get a lot on here, as you guys know, that you guys are always asking me, like, what's my sales strategy? How do I sell to restaurants? How do I approach them? And the answer is there's no real fast way to do it. You have to go out there and hand out the samples, the same strategy I've talked about over and over again. And because of that, it's a slower buildup.
Right.
But it's a more resilient system.
And the other issue with that is that some areas are going to be hit harder. I'm given to understand that Chicago and potentially larger parts of Illinois.
I think the entire state is,
Restaurants, that's not a thing anymore. So
takeout only.
Yeah.
Someone who mentioned France wasn't shut down. And we have to
Right.
watch out.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
and that's the reality that we're having to deal with is welcome to life in the apocalypse. But
You are what you eat, and everyone should be required to try the straw in a turkey fryer method as a learning experience. So this is actually something we've run into. We hired a guy a long time ago, great worker. Like I love him to death, and I'm still friends with him and talk to him. But he worked for us for, I don't know, the better part of a year and a half, packing Master's Mix blocks.
Mhm.
And he was doing the Thor and Mousetrap, which granted is, it's a 2-step process, 3-step if you count folding, 4-step if you count loading.
Right.
So, I mean, right, there's 4 steps to making a block and packing it. But he had never really known the woes of straw packing because we built that up. And now we have guys, we have guys, and they know because they've heard us talk about the old days. They know it was so much worse. But even now, anytime I hear them talking about how tired they are from this kind of stuff, I'm just like, man, like I remember 4 generations ago how terrible it was to pack bags,
Right.
like in the straw and everything else. But
well, and I remember packing out in the wintertime.
oh my gosh, oh my
It's
gosh,
it's come straight out of the
pasteurizer.
out of the drum, and you lay it out to cool, and then the top layer is freezing, and the
And
bottom
it would
layer is
become
still hot,
hard.
and you gotta toss it.
And then it would stab
It
you
would
through
freeze
your
on the
glove.
top
you'd get
and be
icicles.
like,
It was
Oh.
ridiculous.
It was like boiling hot in the center of
Man,
the
it's
straw
beautiful
pile.
being old and being able to talk about how bad life was. When
I
we were
know.
kids.
Back before we had mushroom videos to teach us. Yeah.
Man, it sucks being old, but
It
that's
does.
just the reality of it.
But anyways, going back to
Always
the
good.
tiered farms.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
tier 1, the basic idea is that you handle the entire customer relationship yourself, and you're able to grow mushrooms that nobody else is able to because you can ship them in time that they're still fresh. Tier 2 being so tier 1 mushrooms are like Hericium, oysters, chestnut, black poplar are kind of on the border. They could be tier 1, tier 2. But the ones that you have a distinct advantage in being able to deliver same day or next. And then you've got shiitake, maitake, potentially black poplar. That would be a tier 2, which is it can make it through a food distributor, but generally doesn't make it as far as grocery stores. I know shiitake still does, but
No longer shelf life.
yeah, so you have a more intermediate length of shelf life, and then you have the tier 3, which is basically agaricus, and potentially some others that I'm just not familiar that they probably grow in China because they do that type of thing over there. But the main idea there is that they package well and they ship well and they last long enough to make it into a grocery store. But I think a small farm's best route is to start with tier 1, build your own customer base, keep that relationship. And I mean, if you're trying to grow fast, you don't have the time. So it just depends on ultimately what you're doing.
But it's good to be aware of what strategy
Right.
you're taking, at least, because
well, and even if you do, like, I think that there's, and I even mentioned this on one of my articles, that there's certainly room for a mixed approach. If you have the capacity, then sell through whatever channels you can develop, but don't forget your own sales and distribution network. I think that that's going to give you a lot more resilience in the long run. And part of it's just because you have more data. Like Andrew was actually just talking to chefs in the Knoxville market earlier today and trying to keep his finger on the pulse of the local market. And we can do that because we have that direct relationship with our customers. Whereas a tier 2 farm who's going through 1 to 2 or 3 possibly big clients who are distributors, their order was canceled that week as they were preparing to deliver it, and now they have all this product that is not deliverable.
Not only the mushrooms that they can't deliver, but now they're sitting on how many blocks that are incubating all that time. They can slow it down by cooling them, but now the cooling's an extra cost. Do they throw it away? Do they whatever? But there's a lot of different things. That's one of the reasons why I like my strategy right now is to pack. And like I said, don't take this as gospel. Don't imitate my strategy without, first taking responsibility to think for yourselves on it.
I mean, you guys know your market far better than we do.
Right.
Even if you don't know your market very well, because we just know Knoxville.
Right. And but I'm going to pack about the same amount of oysters I normally pack. And then I'm going to double down on slower to grow mushrooms like black poplar, chestnuts, maitake. Might get into shiitake sometime soon-ish. I don't know yet because our infrastructure is not really set up to handle that, and I don't like going off our infrastructure. So,
right.
But there are.
We'll have the space.
Oh yeah, we'll have the space at the warehouse. Yeah.
Right.
So it's an option.
I've hit you like 3 times. Like I'm just swinging my arms. So, but I mean that Ben. I know that's a long answer, but
right. And as far as communicating with the government or a bank or whatever, dude, I don't know. I have a bank account. That's as far as I go. Money goes in, money comes out. I don't talk to them beyond that. So not even going to begin to approach that. Use what information you have and whatever method you have of communicating.
Yep.
And Wayne, as far as cabin fever, yeah, I think that's true. Yes, this is a pandemic. I think is it unofficially classified?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Great.
So
one way or another.
Well, here's the thing. There are.
We're skating through the apocalypse, but
right.
It's happened before. Like this is the thing. Like
it's the endless cycle.
Yeah. People live and they grow, and then we get sick and we die, and that's just the way things are.
Even though this particular thing hasn't happened before, and the concept of it, of facing this unknown thing,
right,
and responding to it in a responsible way.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. It's WHO says global pandemic.
Okay.
Which is the World Health Organization.
Wait, who said it?
World Health Organization.
He's messing with you. That said,
there I was trying to
I don't think the CDC. I don't think the CDC has declared it a pandemic yet.
Okay.
So each one of them has a slightly different definition of what a pandemic is.
Great.
And that's so helpful. I know standards, right? Like you would think there would be standards in the medical field, I guess, but biology kind of resists standards at every turn because it's so plastic. So,
which is actually something we've talked about is there's a remarkable lack of standards in the mushroom growing industry.
Microclimates.
Yeah.
Flatten the curve. You know what she's talking about there?
No, I haven't really paid much attention, but you're talking about like stopping the spread.
Slowing the spread. So what it does is instead of having a huge spike,
right,
you have a elongated kind of hill.
Right.
Because you make intelligent choices that stop the spike. Therefore, you're rounding it down.
Which there are
below that critical line.
Right.
Of loss.
And yeah, they're saying that the peak will never get that bad, so the loss of life will be much higher if you have a spike.
Now,
But I don't know. One of the things that some people talk about is that by flattening the curve, you're actually lengthening the amount of times that the virus is continuing to propagate, and therefore has more generations, therefore more likelihood of mutating into something more virulent.
I mean, I don't know.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of it there. So
I'm not an epidemiologist, so don't take anything I say on this as being any kind of substance.
Hell, I'm not even a biologist.
But the reality of it is, some people are naturally resistant to it. So worst case scenario, all the people who aren't are going to die, and then we'll have a new breed of humanity going forward that's resistant to the novel coronavirus. And
bigger, better, stronger.
Who knows how many people it's going to take in its wake? That's very callous way of looking at it, but life will go on. This is not the end of the world.
So the two people have brought up a good point of it. It's to just not overload the medical facilities.
Right, and that's what I was figuring it's all about. I mean, we're only used to having a certain percentage of the population
sick at any one point.
Or sick, at any one given point, and then things start to look really bad when you just don't have enough workers to deal with it.
Right.
But that was a big tangent.
It was a big tangent. We were talking about tier farms and all that kind of stuff, but before that, we were talking about working backwards, and
sure.
So I know, but
as far as standards, that's one of the things that Andrew and I have talked about for some time. Is that when you look out at the small time growers, woo man, some people do some things.
Some people do some things.
And so we saw that there was a lot of information getting out, and some of it was good and some of it was bad. And so you talked to Brian Callow, right? And he was the one that kind of talked you into starting the YouTube channel.
It was a combination of him and Eric Myers.
Okay.
But that was back when Eric Myers' channel was big.
Right.
Ish.
But yeah,
before he broke the rules. Yeah.
There are a few very prominent and influential voices. And so we decided to join that and try to export as much of a standard. I think Andrew's talked about his Chang Ho transmissions.
Yeah.
We want to just be able to set very simple, easy to build infrastructure, like my shelves, the basic room design.
Exportable, standardized.
Yep. And we've seen a lot of different implementations of it, and I think it's great. It's weird to see pictures of grow rooms and be like, hey, that's not my grow room.
Right.
But
that's happened to me multiple times now.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is not too long ago, just like months ago, someone would post pictures of our shelves, and I'd be like, oh man, those are like, or what I would think are our shelves, and I would notice it's not, and I'd be like, oh man, really like your shelves and everything else. I'd be like, thanks, we got them from you. And now there are people who've never even heard of me and been
who are using
our shelves. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so we kind of like have grandchildren that haven't even met their grandparents. Yeah, that's fun.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. I love it when it just takes off like that.
Ocean air, have a garage attached to the house, decent sized insulated shed in the backyard. Where would you put the lab and incubation room and the fruiting room? No idea. I don't know what your garage looks like. I don't know what your shed looks like. Figure out a layout and make a design. Sorry to be unhelpful, but the reality of it is that you generally need more fruiting room than you do incubation. So just depending on the size shed, the size garage, and what's power to. And I mean, if you already have power to the shed, then that's great. But you're probably going to need more power in the grow room, and whatever you can button up snug to handle the humidity. So,
I mean, I would really think in terms of flow.
Yep.
And think about like you want to cross your own path as few times as possible.
Yep.
So you want to handle blocks the fewest times possible, and you want to think in terms of flow when it comes to your airflow. Like you don't want your grow room bleeding air back into your lab or incubation.
Clean goes to dirty. wet goes to dry.
Yep, clean goes to dirty, wet goes to dry. I like that.
And you wanna push it the way it needs to go.
Yeah. So,
Like Lenny says, some states have closed restaurants for 4 weeks.
yeah.
Ours are voluntarily shutting down as far as their dine-in.
Well, there's mostly doing takeout still. Yeah.
They're doing takeout
And we've had at least one
curbside pickup. That's it.
closed down completely.
Yeah. I think tonight's their last night of service. Is what Samantha was saying.
So, I mean, that's the thing is you have local circumstances. That's the thing about being a local farm is you adapt to your local circumstances.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see the responses too, though, because there's a lot of people going out and buying gift certificates online. That way, the restaurants and the farmers still get a semblance of income, but they know that they'll be able to take them up on it later. So there's this kind of idea of that. So that's another thing about being local is you have that local support too, because you know your friends and your neighbors and your families, and I really like that. Yeah.
I was leaning because you were quiet and I was having a hard time hearing you. So
Sorry.
it's okay.
We get quieter so that she can be heard, and she gets quieter.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Everybody's paying attention.
Look at her turn red now.
Mushrooms will cure the corona. Do not make that claim.
What?
No,
Please.
don't.
They saying that?
It's a bad idea.
Me, whatever.
Oh, Michael Lee.
Wagman.
I didn't see on the news though where
But-
Circadian Hoda said something about mushrooms were immune boosting and they were good foods to eat while you were sick or something.
So
Yeah,
there are a lot of
What is
studies that show that in
Okay,
mice and rats, and so I don't know of any human studies that have really been done to show how I don't know. It's Hoda and something. Hoda and the Tramp. I don't know.
What? That's not nice.
Oh, I didn't mean I meant like the movie, not Tramp.
Man.
I'm gonna
anyways.
get this right.
You're
Just
terrible.
Anyways, there are certain actually, interestingly enough, Hen of the Woods. I was reading about it. Hen of the Woods has got some of the most antiviral activity of any of the mushrooms in those studies. Again, none of them human studies. We have no idea how it will actually work or react or anything. But interestingly enough, it was Hen of the Woods that was one of the most active, especially when it was paired up with shiitake, which I thought it kind of blew my mind. Yeah. So
It's Hoda and Jenna now?
I have no
It
idea.
was Kathy. I said Kathy.
Hoda and Kathy.
Kathy and Hoda.
I don't know. I don't watch any of those shows. I don't have TV, so
I just saw it on the feed.
So,
I gotcha.
I'm gonna
Oh, it was interesting.
hop up here to Juiced. Sorry, I'm sure I butchered your name. Anyway, $5 a pound in the store and $2 a pound wholesale.
That's cheap
Yeah, that's cheap. I mean, we sell for $8 a pound, and
to restaurants, though.
to restaurants. And so the big thing is
Oh,
that
I guess
where are you actually
wholesale.
going to be selling?
Right.
Are you trying to do wholesale, or are you talking about doing directly to a customer / consumer? So the big thing is to find out what your actual ceiling is as far as price, and if you can deliver same day or next, then you should be able to get somewhat of a premium.
Worst dollars.
Oh, hey, what's up, Jason?
Hey, Jason's on. What's up,
But
man?
Hey.
just because everybody else is selling at a certain space doesn't mean that's your ceiling, especially if you're growing tier 1 mushrooms.
So we started selling mushrooms at $8 a pound to the restaurants for $80 cases of the roughly 10-pound cases.
Right.
So one of my first sets of students went down to Atlanta. They were from Knoxville. We met them in Knoxville. They moved down to Atlanta, started a mushroom farm, and I think they started off selling oysters at $12 a pound. And I think they may still be there at $12 a pound. They may have gone down to 10, but either way, they're still selling for $2 to $4 more a pound than I am. And really that was partly because we suggested that they always start high because it's always easier to come down.
It's easier to come down than it is to raise your prices. People will fight you so much less if you walk in and say, "Hey, you know what?
You can pay me less money."
But again, it's going to be local conditions in Belgium. If you're actually exploring doing this for reals, then grow out a relatively small run around the restaurants, see if there's any interest, and then ask for a ridiculously high amount and wait until they stop squirming. And that's pretty much that's what I know how to do.
Yeah.
And then if you can, run your numbers, have an idea of what it's taking you to put in that block, be generous on the amount of time that it's going to take you, because when you start scaling up, it's going to take longer. And figure out maths. Do that.
One of my least favorite things, but one of my favorite results.
Right.
Yeah, I always like the results of maths. I don't like doing the maths.
I actually agree.
Really? You're so good at it.
Yeah, but I hate everything about life. And so I just bear with the suffering. And at some point I get some satisfaction out of it, and that's about that.
Sorry.
You keep scooting me.
There's gonna come a time that I have people to do all the terrible things for me, and I can just focus on the things that I enjoy. Until that time, life's suffering, guys. It's just the reality.
I told my mom one day in the future, I know it's not going to be soon, but one day I would love to have a maid. Because I hate cleaning. It's the worst thing in the world. I don't care if I'm living in relative poverty. I would live in relative poverty and have a maid.
You can hire a cleaner to come and clean once a week.
Oh my gosh.
That's a thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'd rather clean my own home.
Why would you rather clean your own home?
I'd rather you clean your own home too.
I didn't know that it was clean. I'm not saying I do a horrible job, but I don't know.
Oh man.
Anthony,
particular.
Yeah, elderberry tinctures in the house, better than anything on the shelves. Yeah, anything that you can make yourself, as long as you don't suck at it, is going to be better than what you buy from the store.
Yeah, you remember that elderberry wine Adam gave us, and we accidentally let it turn to vinegar? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was the best vinegar,
man,
I've ever had in my entire life.
And someone convinced us to use it on ice cream, and it was
Ben.
Yeah.
That was right.
Yeah, it was Ben that convinced it, because he had
really good.
He had vinegar on ice cream out in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, who'd have thought that would be good? It was good.
It was that elderberry. I didn't believe you, but when I had that elderberry stuff on vanilla ice cream, oh my gosh. Ooh. So
Amazing.
I will say that my favorite form so far of consuming elderberry has been in the form of vinegar.
Vinegar on ice cream.
Vinegar on ice cream.
Oh, and Chris from Enoki let me try some elderberry syrup, and it was really good too.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've ever had elderberry syrup. I'll have to try sometime.
Blender Palace. Last time I didn't quite understand it. You can freeze liquid culture.
I never said that you can freeze it to store it. I said that I have had them freeze in the mail and then thaw out, and they were still good. Now, it's going to depend entirely on your species. It's going to depend on whether the syringe busts open. It's going to depend on a lot of different factors. I have frozen spawn on purpose of one type, the King Blue. I froze that one for I did one for 6 months and then one for almost a year. The year one was accidental. I just forgot that it was in the freezer downstairs. I pulled it out one day and I was like, "Oh yeah, we got to run today. Why don't we? Or got to run tomorrow? Why don't I just let that out and thaw out?" And they used it the next day, and it grew in great. So
that's amazing.
I love that mushroom. But
we used to do it with shiitake spawn too.
Did we freeze it? I thought we just
we cold shocked
it
in the
yeah.
freezer, and it got pretty close to.
I guess some of them probably did freeze. Actually, now I think about it. But
yeah. Okay, so there's so back to the comment. I can't remember who you were, but the design you're talking about. You got a garage and a shed. And Andrew mentioned something that is hugely important, which is just think about it in advance. We've got
Awesome to see you guys too.
we have some internal culture that I was wanting to discuss somewhat. And one of the big things is like I will disappear in my head for hours at a time. And
when he says this, it looks like he's dead on the couch
or on the floor
or wherever
downstairs.
he posts up. Yeah.
And
You'll talk to him. He'll go, mm.
Yeah, because it's really irritating because I'm thinking.
We call it void walking.
Yep. Now, what's really exciting is that Andrew, years ago, not that long actually, Andrew didn't think that he was very creative. And he thought that he just bumbled through the world and wasn't able to design things. And then I told him my process, and he started laying on the ground underneath his desk.
Samantha would come in and be like, Andrew, are you okay?
And he'd try this whole void walking thing.
And but I tried doing like Ben does. Like Ben would talk about he would build machines, right? And then he would work the machine in his mind and work the parts. And then, okay, well, that variation, like I'm going to try it this way and I'm going to do it this way. Oh, rebuild it, tear it apart, rebuild it, tear it apart.
Yeah.
I just have this churn in the void. And so I tried that and it worked. It didn't work for me. Like I was trying to build these machines in my head, and number one, I couldn't. Like it just, I don't know why it never really worked, and it kind of just constantly gummed up and was really frustrating for me. So I just started laying down in there, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to design creatures, right? I'm going to design creatures, and then I'm going to fit them into ecosystems, and I'm going to build whole ecosystems.
Andrew's favorite game as a kid was Sim Life.
Sim Life, I love Sim Life.
Was it Life or World?
Sim Life was the yeah.
Anyway, and then
And
StarCraft came along.
Well, Spore and then
Spore's
StarCraft.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And any of you who have played StarCraft 2, there's a character called Abathur.
Yeah.
Who's a geneticist.
Basically.
That's what we always call Ben.
Yep. So Andrew calls me Abathur, but really he wants to be Abathur.
That's true.
But yeah, I think the big thing is practicing visualization. I still remember the first time that I just intentionally held an image in my head. Don't ask me why, but it was a profile of a large nose with a bright green background. And then I was like, I can hold green in my head and make a picture that I have never seen before. And this is when I was fairly young, but it was an interesting revelation. And then I would play with that, and I would actually, as Andrew said, I would hold entire objects in my head and figure out how they interact. And I'm not very good at building things, so I will dream until I can figure out something that's simple enough that an idiot like me can put it together, and then I figure we can make it work. And so I'm pretty decent at the iterative design process and not very good at building.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks like I'm better at building than I am because I can bumble through the stuff that I can put together. But void walking is, I think it's such an incredibly powerful thing. Just taking the time to just dream. And a lot of the time, I don't actually come up with anything that's particularly useful on its own. Like Andrew has seen me. What was the last one? Oh, heat exchangers.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've been dreaming about heat exchangers for some time, and I hate all the designs that I've seen so far. And I have an idea about something that I might do, but I've still been dreaming on it. And that's the thing, is that just that just churn, and don't, like, I'm not. Oh, what you got? Oh, just say.
Go ahead. We'll get to the
but I'm not too concerned about necessarily coming to an answer directly, because I've got time. But I
like
want to
sandboxing it.
Yeah.
Free exploration.
Yeah, you can just go out into the void and there's no rules there. It's good to keep in mind that there are rules where you're going to be implementing it, but you can do whatever the heck you want and just iterate.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, Andrew, I'm going to let you deal with this one.
For the species you grow, what is the ratio between fruiting room area versus colonization room area you think is best? How much time are the blocks in each? Okay, so this is kind of... Huh?
I said it depends.
It depends on what species you plan to grow.
And the density of your shelves in each.
Right. So if you're going to stock your room really heavily, your grow room, I mean, you're going to have to stock your incubation that much more heavily. The good news about incubation is you're not worried about creating room for the mushrooms to grow out. And so you get to cram a lot more blocks in a smaller space so long as you're able to keep the air beyond or below the point where the blocks will cook themselves to death. And I usually find that's around 75 degrees for our room. As long as I keep them below 75, they won't cook themselves to death. If they go over, then I'll start seeing like green spots start cooking from where they're cooking themselves. As far as a ratio, I don't have a clean ratio because, again, what I would do is work backwards. So if I'm going to be fruiting, let's say I've got 4 walls and each wall holds 50 blocks and I'm just going to do oysters, then I know that it takes about 2 weeks for blocks to grow in the incubation. And I'll do a 4-week cycle, 50 blocks each. So now we know... excuse me. So now we know that we need to hold basically 200 blocks. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You need to hold 200 blocks in incubation, and
plan on having a little bit of
extra
spare. Yeah,
right. Because you'll want to hold enough blocks that you have that constant cycle going on. So you'll do 200 blocks in your grow room, 200 blocks in your incubation, because you're on that 4-week cycle. Now, if you're doing shiitake, though, shiitake incubates for 8 weeks, depending on your strain, 6 to 8 weeks. But let's just go with 8 weeks because it's the easier one to do. Now you know that if you're doing a 4-week cycle for your shiitake, which I probably wouldn't. I'd probably do a 2-week cycle or something like that because I don't want a second flush shiitake. They start getting green and gross. But if we were on that same 4-week cycle and you wanted to do 50 blocks each, now what that comes out to... you got to hold them for 8 weeks. So now 50. Right. I know, man. I'm terrible at it. 400. So you need twice the amount of incubation that you would have needed. Oh, but now that I think about it, your shiitake can't be fruited at the same density that your oysters can be fruited at.
Because you have to grow all around the block.
Because you grow all the way around the block, yeah. So instead of just out one side or the other. So it's entirely going to depend. And that's why we talk about it's so important to work backwards from this stuff, because having that target will allow you to systematize everything up to that point, and systems are easy to work, jobs aren't.
Right.
So.
Yeah, the most important tech is technique, not technology.
Absolutely.
Technique first, then technology.
Real quick, Michael Mama's had this question. I figured we can probably answer it real quick, and I think she's been wanting to ask it for a couple of days. I don't know if you answered or not, but it doesn't appear my question's posted. I have a question about my steamer. I was wanting to use 2 4,500 watt elements to flash start my water, then turn off. One of the two for energy saving purposes. Will that work? And if so, is it possible to put them on 2 switches? Also, what size breaker? I have the 220V option and plugs for the dryers. Do you feel comfortable answering that?
Yeah. So I want this system. Jason, you're a strange one. Anyway, yeah. So, Michael Mama, the boiler that we have, I have them on separate switches, and we're using 4,500 watt just water heater elements, and we'll run them both together for the first however long, depending on the temperature outside.
It's usually around 12 hours.
Yeah, Andrew just kind of spitballs and it's just saying, if it's blowing steam, then it's cool. And then we'll cut one of them off and run the remainder for the rest of the run. So you have, also put them on 2 switches, also what size breaker. So I've got the 2 of them together on the same breaker, and it's a 50 amp. I think it ends up being, for 9.
But you do have one wired into a switch Is that also a 15?
Yeah, no, that one's a. I think it's just a 30 amp breaker on the outside.
So one's on a 30, but both, that one ties back to the 50, and then we cut that one, and that allows us to just go onto that 4500 to maintain temp for the rest of the cook.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's fine. So as far as figuring out the size breaker that you need, give me a second because my brain's a little jumbled up right now. But it's amps times volts equals wattage. So if you know two of those, you can get the other one. So you're working with 4500 watt 220 volt.
Amps equals watts times volts.
Yeah, great.
I love this, but people always got my back.
Right. You guys are probably all better at this than I am. I just bumble through life. But yeah, so you got 4,500 watts divided by 220. Somebody do the math for me real quick. It doesn't actually come up to being all that much.
Watts equals amps times volts.
Like 20.
Oh, he said sorry. So I guess amps equals watts times volts was wrong. And it's watts equals amps times volts.
You're right. That's what I was actually. So yeah, wattage is the product. Since you guys are terrible at doing math too. Yeah, so it's like 22 amps, 22.5. So 25, 30 amp per element. So 50 amps is what you want for the whole thing.
Did you see Justin L's comment?
No.
Mr. Ben, the man, the myth, the Myco legend fabricator to the stars.
To the stars. I like that. I appreciate the last part a lot.
Yeah.
I fully intend to leave this planet at some point.
Yeah.
And that's not saying I have a problem with this planet because I really like Earth, but I think that it is the greatest calling of a sentient species to bring life with them into the cosmos.
I had a dream about that once. I think I told you about it.
You did.
Okay. Yeah. I want to bring life to a desolate world.
You're welcome, Michael Mama.
Hey, my dad just called and then texted and said, call me as soon as you can. Do you mind managing this for just a second?
Sure, I might just turn it off.
Don't let him turn you off.
We've been doing this for an hour. Andrew likes to sit here and just chat at a blank screen and some text.
I'll be right back.
2 or 3 hours. It's the craziest thing.
Even if he leaves you, I'll be right back.
Yeah, so I'm getting a little stir crazy. I mean, I don't know most of you guys. This is kind of cool, but it's getting long. I'm going to roll through these comments, see if there's anything that is fun that I particularly want to respond to. Nope, there's some Andrew questions on here. Don't really care. And behind the bagger curtain, cheer up mushrooms will... No, I already talked about that one. Yep, so... I don't know. What do you guys want to talk about at this point? Andrew is leaving me. What are your thoughts when Andrew came to you and said, I want to grow mushrooms? He didn't come to me. I was on the other side of the country when he started growing mushrooms, and I thought it was neat. And I had some feedback as far as the company name. He didn't go with my suggestion, which is fine. But then I married the wrong person, and that didn't turn out too well. And then when we separated, in my depression, I figured something to do would be good for me. So I just started playing with the mushrooms, and I guess that's that. Steam-powered rockets don't work so well. Actually, Steam-powered rockets can work very well. Just don't ride them. Don't ride your own steam-powered rocket. It's proven to be deadly. What do y'all do about mold in the fruiting room? Clean it. When are those beers getting accompanying Garicon hats? Never. That's not a thing. Andrew already has one, and that's silly. We use bleach and a pressure washer. Oh, yeah. There you go. Justin L. Hey, Ben. So I see your work on the channel. I'm a pipe welder, fabricator, etc. I hear you're in the same field. Just wanted to say hats off to you. Everyone digs all you do. Y'all are freaking awesome. Yeah, so, look, the reality of it is everybody's better than me at all of this stuff. I've never welded in my life. I don't really fabricate. I just bumble through life, and some things work out. Everyone needs a Ben. Lol, mine's name is Kevin. You rock. Keep up the ingenuity. Hooray for Kevin. Hope that works out. Care to grow. Thanks. I mean, sure, I guess it is what it is. It's just not really. Hey, everything okay?
It's all right. Michael's in the hospital.
Oh, yeah?
But I'm not going to go visit him, so they'll keep me updated. So.
Okay. All right, Andrew's back.
What's up, guys?
Oh, Jerome, what's your day job? I work at Colgate-Palmolive in Morristown, Tennessee. And right now I'm a shift lead. Hopefully none of my team is watching this because they should be at work, focusing on work. Ben, poor sport, lol. What previous training have you had in engineering? You've had a fantastic mind for it. So I started going to school for engineering, and then I got married, and that ruined everything. So at this point, I have no training in engineering. I just do what looks like it will work, and sometimes it does.
What? What's, oh my goodness? Me burping or him being smart?
Probably me. And
so I'll tell you what training Ben's had. As a child, Ben built his own things. And
Yep.
my parents would buy me toys, and then I would come over to Ben's house and I'd be jealous of whatever Ben built.
Right. Yeah,
So-
just so we're clear, toys are bad for children. I'm 100% honest about this. Like,
Well, seeing as how useless I am and useful you are, yeah, I agree with that.
right, and
I
how
had,
useless your children are.
Right.
Ooh,
Ben's favorite toys were Connects because then he could make his own toys. Any toy he wanted. He
Yeah.
wanted an action figure. It looked like a stick man, but I guess imagination's all he needed.
right. Imagination will take you much further than. That's the big thing, is that toys are supposed to help you develop your imagination, and these toys that we see today, it's just they replace the need for an imagination. And I think that it's stunting to some degree. But, I'm also an old grandpa, and these newfangled things just don't sit well with me.
So Jason and Wayne both said Legos are the best. Legos were my addiction. See, I like Legos too.
Yeah.
Ben disparages Legos greatly.
So the problem I have with Legos is that Legos are just little bombs. They're
Yeah, we've stepped
They're
on that.
landmines just waiting to kill me. And I walk through the house, and then the soles of my feet suffer. So Legos are great if you can keep them contained. You can't keep them contained. What pressure do you run your pneumatics at? 80.
Venture wanted to join us.
Andrew, at least you don't have to worry about Ben stealing your mush hat. That is correct. That's trash.
My mush hat? I don't even think I have it anymore.
Oh, good. I took everything apart. Care to grow?
I mean, as a kid, yeah. So I remember taking something apart one time that my parents bought me, and I got in trouble for it. So
I took everything apart. I had a little robot. I think it was actually my brother's, but it became mine at some point. And I took it apart and put it back together, and it always went backwards after that. So I guess I wasn't very good at that point, but it works. My electronics kit at 6. Yeah, so my dad's an electrical engineer. And so I grew up around electricity, grew up getting shocked. It is what it is. But Dad would always just build stuff. And it was amazing to just see that there could be something where there was just stuff.
They were always setting up like rockets and stuff. And
yeah,
like I liked coming over here because there were just like computer guts. So this house is the house Ben grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
That there would just be computer guts everywhere, like just everywhere.
Yeah, my dad had an old 386 tower, and when I say tower, I mean like it was a 4-foot tower, and we had every generation of computer since then. That was my dad's thing. It's worth it for the creativity the kids get from them.
Talk about Legos.
Well, yeah.
A whole bin of them.
That's what I was saying. If you can keep it contained, they're great.
Right.
It's just like walking death.
So I remember as a kid, one time I was really mad at my parents, and we had this concrete floor, and I set up a bunch of little micro machines, Hot Wheels, and Legos, and stayed in the room and made noise because I knew my parents would come in and step in all that stuff, and I was really pissed at them, and I wanted them to fall. And I just remember that as a kid, like I was an evil little kid, man. I don't know, like, oh my gosh, I've always been the sneaky trapper, huh? I guess I now think about that. I always have been.
You're the worst.
I am the worst. This is why your children are the worst, because I made them.
I swear, y'all got me laughing like a crazy man. We would get along so good. I'm outside New Orleans. I'm happy to come see y'all. Hey, you know what? I have no idea who you are, Justin L., but sure, why not?
Yeah.
Got in trouble for it, especially the new VHS player. Yeah, I actually had a pretty decent track record of things working when I put them back together. So a lot of things my parents just didn't know that I got into.
Because they were outnumbered.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
And then sometimes I'd fix things. And so Dad actually just started letting me take things apart that were broken. And it was either it wouldn't work still or it would actually work better. So
outside?
What do you prefer? Taking things apart and confirming suspicions, or putting it back together without ending up with spares? Both. Spares are bad. Seriously, when you are a kid, how do the pictures get to the TV? Oh, gotcha. Uh-huh. I don't know. Cameras. There. Right there.
Oh, goodness.
I was doing the trick of pointing.
Oh.
How do pictures get to the TV? Right, the camera.
Gotcha.
Sporadic. Hey, do you know if hot water could be pumped into a sauna steamer rather than cold water?
Hey, I was supposed to ask you that question already.
But would it damage the steamer? Where are you getting your hot water from, and how would it cut down on the electric bill? Is this hot water from another source? Because heat in water is heat in water. So if it's running through a water heater, then it's still going to be heating it up. But I mean, ultimately, yeah, the sauna steamer shouldn't have a problem taking in the hot water. It would keep the cycle from damaging it. Or there's propane. There you go. Okay. Yeah, as long as it's not going to get hot enough to melt the plastic of the solenoid, the fill valve. 140 degrees, you're fine. As long as it's 100 degrees. Boilers, hot water freezes faster and cold water boils faster. No. Use single double action actuators. I don't know. I'm not even sure what you're asking.
Jason. Oh, gracious. There was another water question. Did that get answered? I think Micah Mom asked it. I'm not sure.
Sorry, where is the poison on the mushrooms, and what's this?
No poison on mushrooms.
Don't know what you're talking about either. Sauna steamer, 4 kilowatt,
Not ours,
6
at least.
kilowatt. It depends. How many blocks are you doing? We've actually run 120 blocks on a 3 kilowatt boiler. It just took 2 days to run it, so it's probably going to be more energy efficient to go a little bit higher than that. But it just depends on how many blocks you're actually running.
It's on the just spinning.
Seems that way.
Well, no idea if we're still going or not.
Yeah, it looks like we are.
Yeah, looks like we are.
You have anything else you want to talk about, Andrew?
Well, we had mentioned a couple different things earlier when we were talking about
Culture. Spawning culture.
we were talking about spawning culture.
Andrew's been throwing that one out there for years now, and I don't know that he's ever discussed what we're actually talking about. And do you have any thoughts on that?
I'd like to hear your thoughts first, I think.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously the first one is that we work with mushroom cultures, so that makes sense, and we do the whole mushroom spawning. So that's the obvious thing. But one of the big things for us is that we want to have I guess I should stop using the royal we. I personally would like to have a culture of people that are somewhat more along the lines of my same thinking, that I can interact with. And so with the spawning culture, a big thing is that, mushrooms are cool, I guess. But
They're super cool. But there are lots of cool things in this world.
there are. But we want to be able to express who we are and draw other people who are similar to us. And it's important to me, especially in this world where there's such a networked society. It seems like people on a local level are not connecting as much. And so to me, there's a long-term view in which ultimately I would like to have more people who make sense to me. Because I float through life in a sea of strangers, and it's a strange thing. And part of that's I'm an introverted person, so I don't really go out of my way to try to talk to people. You are great, Ben, and this is so true. Sure. And so I'm kind of piggybacking on Andrew's system that he's building here, and I happen to like a lot of the people that we meet. Now, one of the big things is that I think the great American entrepreneur, has suffered somewhat of a decline over the last who knows how long. And one of we're running into kind of a service economy. Manufacturing is starting to make a comeback, but had been in quite a slump for a long time.
Not a chance.
What's this?
Shave our beards. No. My strength will continue to grow.
Right.
Anyways, but so if I may,
Yeah,
I'll jump in here. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm not going to shave my beard. This is a badge of honor.
I'll be stuffing this into the boots of my spacesuit when I go to Mars.
Boots.
That's right.
That's how long it's going to be.
That's right. So my great hope actually was I never wanted to stop with mushrooms. I'm not planning on
yes.
Stopping. Like I want to get into breeding yeast for the brewing industry or with microbes, or there's all kinds of stuff that I want to get into. Eventually, like I love fish. I want to get back into fish one day. But honestly, I gave myself this one last summer. I know, right? I gave myself this one last summer, and I thought, if I don't make it this last summer, then I'm just going to completely focus on mushrooms for, 10 years, the next 10 years or whatever.
And stabilize the base a little better.
Right. And so much like in nature, my idea was that mushrooms would be the foundation on which my businesses would be built going forward. And for that, I do need to have a very strong foundation. But also, I had hoped that when I first started Mossy Creek Mushrooms, Ben was off in Oregon, I think, maybe, or maybe.
No, I was in Utah.
He was in Utah at the time. So was another buddy of ours, and I had hoped that.
No, I guess I was in Oregon. Right.
Okay, I can't remember exactly what it was, but
yeah.
Two of my best friends were off different corners of the United States, and I had hoped that I would build something that they would also be able to build off of, and that would attract them to come back. So that it definitely worked. I mean,
no, it didn't. I came back in spite of this insanity that
fair
you were
enough.
starting.
Well, whatever. Maybe it didn't attract you here, but I attracted them back. The call was too strong.
You are so attractive.
I am so attractive. But anyways, the whole point was that I wanted to cut my teeth on something small, something relatively light investment. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've spent plenty on this. But as far as like a lot of businesses go, it's a fairly light investment compared to a lot of things.
Yeah, at least to get started.
Yeah, at least
you can get up and going.
Right. Yeah. And so the spawning culture was very much like what Ben was talking about. Like I never wanted to have to put on. I tried that for the first little bit, like to be the good salesman, right? To be blank to the point that nobody could really pin me down. What?
Bromance. Yeah.
Bromance. Yeah. Well, I've known Ben since 3rd grade. Now, granted, Ben didn't like me until about 6th grade because he thought I was an a-hole.
He was.
I was. I mean, you guys heard the Lego story, so I mean, you know that I am. But but yeah, I mean, there's definitely, we've been friends a long time. Most of my life now. So
yeah, the vast majority of our lives at this point.
Absolutely. So my hope was that I would cut my teeth in learning business and everything else, biology, on this venture, and then it would create the foundation for all the other things that I want to do going forward. Always with the goal that, one day I'm hoping that Elon Musk gets the Mars colony figured out, and I'm getting to go on that kind of stuff. And if he fails at that, then at least my life I'll be wealthier and happier and full of businesses. So either way, it's a good way to go.
Yeah.
But the spawning culture part was because we wanted to create a culture of like-minded individuals, not just mushroom people, but like, whatever you do, we want to connect with you if you're a like-minded person who values, systems, working backwards, the kinds of things that we're talking about.
And entrepreneurship. I think.
Yep.
I think taking responsibility for as much of your life as you can, is hugely important. That's a huge value to me. Is you're responsible for your life. You're responsible for what happens to you. And that's not saying you can control everything, but you can control you. And if the world sets you back, then that just means that you're being given a great opportunity to learn to come back. But entrepreneurship is that ultimate taking of responsibility, because right now I have a job, and I work full time, and I see the effect of being an employee in a large facility, and there's this sense of helplessness that is disheartening to me, and I don't think that it's specific to manufacturing or anything. I think it's when you rely on someone else for everything that you make, then it doesn't give you the same perspective as when you step out on your own. And
Well, it's not as empowering, but it's also not as
Right.
like forging because, I mean, gosh, how many variations of just trauma have we gone through starting a
Right.
business because it's all on you? And
I can certainly relate to this, especially that
he's the lady in the
Richie's
back. No offense, but she's gorgeous. I have no idea whether you're a male or female, live life, but yes, Samantha is a beautiful person.
yes, she is.
Now I want to read even more. Stop it. Goodness.
It's fine. The
Um,
wrench. What is this?
Hmm?
Justin L. The wrench?
Where?
I'm not sure.
The wrench. Oh,
Right here.
I don't know. Maybe Jason or Wayne blocked somebody.
Oh, could be. But yeah, Andrew's talking about how he wants to have a vicious pirate crew.
Well, so when I hired Jason
Yeah.
and Laura, I told them, I was like, look, guys, I know it's stupid sounding, but I told them, like, look, I want you guys to be my vicious pirate crew. And I was telling Laura earlier today, like, good. She told me something that, she was proud of and we were happy about. And I was like, good. I want you guys to always be hungry for this.
Yep.
Like, I want you hungry for hours. I want you hungry for opportunities. I want you always on, like, the edge of mutiny.
hungry for a voice,
Right.
too. Like,
Yeah, hungry for a voice. Yeah, like,
all
And
your opinions.
and Jason is If It's Fish in the comments over here.
yep.
I appreciate the heck out of Jason. Him and Laura are such a pain in the ass
Especially for poor Ben.
because they always have things that they want from me, but it makes the operation better. And those things, they're right there on the floor. But Jason, if you look at his name, it's If It's Fish, and like to me, that's gonna be the best thing in the world is when Jason is able to grow beyond needing us.
Yep.
When If It's Fish takes off, and ultimately, he's able to do all of what his dream is, and we're happy to keep him as long as we can.
We want
But
movers and
ultimately,
shakers.
yeah, I mean, we want to be surrounded by ambitious people, and want to encourage and foster that ambition, and that's important to me. There's been a lot of discussion, and I don't know how much it's going on anymore, but in the mushroom groups, I get tired of the mushroom groups because I don't like a lot of people. But there's a discussion about how awful employees are, and we've got killer employees, and hopefully they get to the point that they just don't need us anymore. Because mutiny on the bounty is what we're all about. I'm most ill, and I'm rhyming and stealing.
Are you referencing your pirate podcast? Because I will tell you, I just downloaded a bunch of episodes of the pirate podcast. I haven't even started yet. But
male,
hell,
my friend.
hell, because you said you know if he's male or female. Michael Mama, hell yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you've almost got all that stuff done. Do you recommend HEPA filter incoming, outside, and then the inside also, or do you believe that it's just internal filtration on the inside? Inside what, darling? Like inside the lab, inside the grow room, inside the refrigerator? Because the only thing that we really recommend HEPA filter is the lab. And we like to bring air from outside, filter it through 2 pre-filters, and then through the HEPA filter so that it creates positive pressure in the lab. Vestige? What? Beastie Boys.
Where y'all from? We're from Tennessee.
Yep. East Tennessee.
Andrew's family has been here since the white man first showed up.
Basically, yeah.
Samantha's a Kentucky girl.
Yeah, Kentucky rat.
Whose father very quickly escaped to civilized territory.
Suckled by wolves.
In Tennessee.
Pretty much.
And
raccoons and bears.
I'm from wherever the heck. This is my home. I claim it.
Ben's Tennessee now. We adopted him.
I'm branching it into the lab and the cold storage. Sorry, Shug.
No reason to be sorry. So I don't know about the the cold storage. Like I don't see any need unless you're talking about like cold storage of cultures. But then I don't really think that you need to be piping a lot of air into that. As far as the HEPA filtration, yeah, I would just do the lab. There's no reason in HEPA filtering everything. You're just spending a lot of money filtering air.
Yeah.
So, because like our grow room, we just suck in air from the house, and I guess it gets lightly filtered through the household filtration, but not really. And at the new place, we're just planning on pulling air from outside, pre-treating it with air conditioner, swamp cooler, and HRV, which that'll be actually post-treatment.
We'll have a dust filter on the intake from outside, but that's the extent of the filtration that we're going to have going into the grow rooms. It's just dust.
Yep. 2
filters for the lab outside and inside. Yeah. So what we do is have a multi-stage setup. We have, if you've seen the videos, then it might make sense to you. But on the outside wall of the lab, I cut a hole and just put a frame to where we have a dust filter on it.
So the air is treated by our
beards.
That's right.
With our beards.
Yeah. Jason has a beard too, and so now he's saying we filter it with our beards.
We have a house filter, and then we have the filter in the wall.
Right. So there's a dust pre-filter, and then we have an allergen. I don't know what MERV rating it is because I just don't get into all that, but it's called an allergen filter. It's the purple one at Lowe's.
That's what I was saying.
And then so it goes through those 2 stages, and most of the filth in the air goes onto the dust filter, and it's cheap. It's like $3.
Well, we bought a really, really nice filter for all of them, and it ended up stopping it up. So don't go too crazy.
Yeah.
Not be too perfect and get the virus dust, all of it.
It's really lightly dust filter, and then further in the box, horizontally is an allergen filter, rated for mold spores. I don't go higher than that. And then, like, I don't get the smoke filters or anything like that. And then the HEPA filter gets
everything else.
The remaining.
But the reason is that the dust filter is like $3 to replace, and then the allergen filter is what, like
we did put the most expensive one on the house, and then kind of degrade it down as it goes through multiple filters.
I'd never have a man except Wayne. He'd accept me anyway. Okay, Wayne, I'll check that out here in a little bit. Well, Michael, Mom, I've not even seen you without a beard, so you know.
It's fair.
Without a beard?
I mean,
I've never seen her. I don't know.
Every single one of you guys could be bearded ladies. I have no idea. I know Jason. The rest of you just don't know.
You know Jason's a bearded lady?
Yes.
God.
He's an alien.
He's
beautiful the way he is.
You guys are nuts.
Oh man.
That's why I like
Have you heard of people using a 2.5 to 3 inch HEPA filter for flow hood? 3 inch or 3 foot?
Yeah. Are you talking about the thickness? Because the thickness isn't really what matters. It's the rating of the MERV rating coupled with your flow rate, coupled with your plenum, and I can't even remember what else. HEPA filters, like a lot of people think that a HEPA filter is a HEPA filter is a HEPA filter. It's not that way at all. There's actually a lot that goes into them, and I don't understand it all, which is why I buy mine from a mushroom company rather than like going on eBay and hoping that I get the best one by chance because I don't understand it.
Yeah, and that's something that I've not really looked into either.
Well, and it's if you consider like what
the big thing is I don't know problems that I haven't had to solve yet. And Andrew already had a HEPA filter. He bought it from Fungi Perfecti years ago, and that was like the first thing that you bought.
Yeah. Actually, I bought it in 2013. So how many years has that been, Ben? What are we at now? It's 7.
20. Yeah. 7 years ago.
All right, to give you an idea, I bought my HEPA filter in 2013, about 7 years ago, and I paid $1,500 for it. I've never changed it, just the pre-filters, and we probably have spent a fair chunk on pre-filters.
Yeah,
we changed through a few of those.
But
that definitely extends the life of it.
Well, yeah, mine has been running. So I mean, you might as well, if you amortize it over 7 years. I paid $214 a year for a HEPA filter, which is cheap.
The These 3M purple on my list. Got it. Yes. Washable filters are awesome. Yeah, I remember my dad had washable filters for this house when.
Are those the electrostatic?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they worked fine. So, great, go for it. In fact, I wouldn't have a problem putting one on at least the pre-stage right now.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. We should look into that.
Yeah. And then if you have 2 of them, then you can just swap it, clean it, swap it back, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah. I used to use an ionizer in the lab whenever we'd turn the fan off.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used that the past year, and I haven't noticed a big difference. So I'd always kind of thought and assumed that the ionizer was helping, but.
Well, in the other lab, it might have done more because we had the ventilation right there.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Whereas this one, everything draws through the filter.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And Air Science Florida makes them probably getting close to time to replace the HEPA filter. So I checked into Air Science, and man, those are pricey, even by like Paul Stamets cost. Though I think most of theirs come with their biosafety cabinets, not just HEPA filters, if I'm right. And I would love to have a biosafety cabinet. I'm planning on getting one day, but right now we just dropped a chunk of change on this warehouse and the build out for it, and
so we're holding off on any other major investment right now.
That's right. Yep.
Make sure we can kind of survive through all this with our tail intact.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because great, we just dropped an investment on the warehouse, and then I just dropped another 1,500. No, yeah, a little
about 1,500 a day.
16.
Yep.
Today, by the time it was all said and done, and that we're just getting started, and great, the apocalypse starts right in the middle of it.
And so now we're like, oh, well, just keep building, I guess.
So we'll use as much of what we
I'm
have.
freaking out.
Yeah.
Get a stainless steel cabinet for those Air Science ones. The plexiglass will crack if you're not meticulous about wiping the alcohol off.
Yeah, so alcohol is ruinous to many materials, as we found out on our table after Samantha so painstakingly painted the honeycomb pattern.
And that was my fault.
Tediously researched
I got
the
the wrong
paint too. And even asked the guy who was the specialist in the paint.
Specialists don't know anything.
Correct.
And I read some things, and then it just didn't work. So
Yeah.
Experience proves above all.
For sure.
Where is that?
Yeah, this stuff is rough. Makes a good cleaner, though.
Makes what?
It makes a good cleaner. Like with my liquid culture jars, when I cook them in the pressure cooker,
Mm-hmm.
they always have a white, calcified film on the jars. It makes it hard to see to them. And so I just alcohol soak a rag and then wipe them down, and it just takes it right off. But if I try a water soak rag, it will not take it off at all.
This says the plexiglass will crack if you're not.
We just read that. That's what we've been talking about.
Sorry, I went off my own head.
She went void walking right in the middle of a sentence.
Totally did.
Geek Squad level? What? I don't know what you're talking about there.
Is the Geek Squad? Isn't that the
that's
their
the
computer?
Yeah,
Really?
from I think it's Best Buy or
I don't remember.
whatever. Doesn't matter. For every expert, there's an equal and opposite expert. That's fair. You find more dust with soybean pellets versus hardware pellets?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very dusty compared to the
And in
sawdust.
the bag, it's not even it's all pelletized.
Yeah.
It's part of it's pelletized, and the other part is just
Half of it's
Here.
dust. Yeah. That's actually made me wonder if we could, if
sticky,
Prometheus
especially
could
it's
handle
sweaty.
wheat bran. I just don't think it would fall in the hopper very well.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to
Working
deal
on
with
your logo, by the way.
bridging.
Gonna be great.
You're working on whose logo?
I
Salty
used
Cactus
distilled
logo.
water.
Oh, you're working on
Pressure
Saltines?
Is that you?
Oh, hey, Saltine. I didn't realize you were on, man.
Oh yeah, he's
Really
on.
excited.
Okay.
So distilled water in your pressure cooker, yeah, that will keep you from getting the sediment. You
Hey.
could use RO water.
Oh, I could use my RO
keep
water.
it from building up the lime.
We should put a reservoir here in the house.
Expert is
cool.
somebody who knows everything that was. That's fair.
Ooh,
Daryl Wise
I like that.
What's up, Daryl?
I like that a lot. Expert is somebody who knows everything that was. I like it a lot. Might find the respite during the apocalypse to invest more time in the warehouse. So a lot of people have been saying that, but no, no, I need to keep selling, man. No.
Yeah, so
I'll hide in the warehouse. By the way, delivery 7 to 11 is the time frame they gave me for tomorrow. So.
Oh shoot! So we gotta be there early.
Yep. I mean, I was planning on being there a little early, but 7 o'clock. So just so you guys know, I work second shift, and I normally go to bed about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So 7 o'clock is going to be a little early for me, but it is what it is.
So we got an early start tomorrow to get some supplies.
What's the longest you ever let a bag of Spawn sit and still used it? Apparently a year.
Well, that was in the freezer. If you're not just sitting, if it starts pinning in the bag, I don't like to use it. If it starts like getting yellow spots in the bag, like liquidy stuff, I don't worry about that so much. But if they start turning like black or something, I don't like using that.
You.
What?
You.
Ooh. The black spots?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I said. I don't like using that.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, I had an afternoon snooze. Kids are out of school for
When we
months.
get rolling on baggers, I'll be
Why is that?
interested. What do you mean rolling on baggers?
As in, if you want him to build one, just email me at mossycreekmushrooms@gmail.com. So, just in case you didn't hear that over her talking, mossycreekmushrooms@gmail.com is where you email me to get on the waiting list for a bagger.
Yeah, so fun story. Actually, this move into the foundry, that's what we're calling it, by the way.
Foundry?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, we named it the Foundry.
The move into the foundry was actually
Still to be determined.
instigated because
I like it.
because Jason and Laura have a tendency of hiding all of my stuff in a little corner, and then this little troll right over here, dwarven troll,
We are dwarves. Hashtag dwarven technology.
rearranged all my stuff downstairs, and everything's in these neat little boxes that are labeled, and I have no idea where anything is.
They're labeled.
And so it got to the point where it took me 4 hours of setup and finding and searching
And moving.
in order to do 2 hours of work. And then by the time I finished, everything had to be put back away, and then they hated me because everything was back out where it should have been to begin with. So I was looking for a place that I could actually set up and start working on my stuff without constantly
Goodness
having to work
creating
around
tripping hazard.
them. You guys are trip hazards.
Jason said, I don't hide. I move out of my way.
Right. As you should. But anyway, so it was actually...
Sounds good, Daryl.
So I was looking around, and then the team leader on day shift, who I work with, pointed out a space in Strawberry Plains, and we had actually made an offer on that, and we were
like a day or two away from signing.
I mean, it was supposed to be that Saturday, and it was Tuesday. But
Okay, so it was just a few days.
But then how do you even find
my dad's an insurance agent, so I called him about getting my liability increased for the new warehouse in Strawberry Plains. And he's like, well, here's the quote I can give you, but you need to go talk to this guy. He's actually a liability specialist for weird cases, and mushroom farms are almost always considered weird cases. He's like, he might be able to get you something cheaper. It's a couple bucks cheaper a year, but I called his friend, who is also an insurance agency owner, and happens to be my dad's landlord for his business, which I thought was kind of interesting. But called him, and he's like, man, why are you going all these Strawberry Plains? That place down the road, the old farmers co-op's opened up. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So he's like, yeah, there's a sign down there. So later on that evening, I just drove down there and saw the sign. And I called the guy.
The sign is really faded, by the way, which we're going to restore.
Not the co-op sign. The co-op sign's faded. And yeah, I'm wanting Samantha to say that she's going to restore it because it's going to look awesome. But I saw the sign that he had just put in front of the road that said, warehouse space release. Right. And I called it, no answer. Waited most of the next day, no answer. So I finally called again and finally got a hold of him, and he was about to head out of town. And he's like, hey, I can meet you over there in 15 minutes. And Ben's like about to leave for work. And I'm like, Ben, can we leave? And it was actually, hey, it was during, I was going to do a live stream. And
Right.
I ended up having to
That
postpone the
got
live stream.
postponed because we ran over there,
Yeah.
and so I ended up being slightly late
Sorry.
for my meeting at work. It's fine because I was whatever. Anyway, so we ran by there, and it was awesome. So here's the deal. Mossy Creek, I'm not sure how much you guys know about it, but that's the name of Jefferson City. There's actually a creek that goes through it that's called Mossy Creek because, remarkably, there's a lot of moss around said creek. So that's the thing. But that actually used to be the name of the town, and since Andrew's family grew up technically in Mossy Creek and the surrounding area, then it's just an homage to the history of this area. But what's fun is that was named. You named it Mossy Creek while you were on Rocktown Road, right?
Yep.
So he was off on kind of the border of the glove.
And we found
Can't see it.
Stop, Blaine. Okay,
There
there
you
we
go.
go. Ha! And we found a glove that's all mossy. And
It's all
a
covered
work
in
glove,
moss.
And it's awesome. Just kidding.
So Andrew named it this while he was kind of out on the border of
Sorry.
what was technically Jefferson City anyway. But then when we rented this place from my parents, I found out, I didn't know this growing up, but we live in Mossy Creek Acres. So that's cool. The pond out back is fed off of Mossy Creek, which I did know. But now the new place is actually bordering on Mossy Creek itself in downtown Mossy Creek. And so serendipity, we happen to be right there where the name is centered on.
In fact, we were out at the warehouse yesterday sitting on the back dock.
Yeah, you step out
and you're just
at
looking
night,
at.
and you can hear the peepers and the crickets and the water running through, and it's just incredibly peaceful and pleasant. And you can see lights from some of the other
Factories
and whatnot.
Neighborhood back there. And
Yeah. It's a really pleasant spot, and
you guys may not know this about me. I love trains. Love trains. And
trains suck.
there's did you say suck?
What?
Anyways, I can stand back out there and watch trains go by. It's boring, but I love it.
We did actually stand back there and watch some trains go by.
Yep. Oh, Daryl says, I had a question for Andrew. I know she cut a square patch out of the bag when fruiting. Have you had better luck with that than just an X? Yeah, but we're actually about to start trials back up in different cuts. I'm having a hard time keeping our squares tiny, and they keep drifting larger and larger. So I'm thinking we might create a tool that will just do a standard cut across all blocks, other than specific like top fruiters or something like that.
Could be.
Set it on the kitchen floor. Please don't move it all over the
Jason,
house.
I don't like Easter egg hunts. I've not done that since I was a child. And so
Ben likes anything.
He doesn't. Ben likes void walking, and he likes being able to go through his life.
I like
with the minimal amount of effort. He likes to think inside his head.
I'm even liking this.
It's like Easter egg hunts.
This is okay.
This is okay.
We're having fun.
Aw.
Jaywalker. Gotcha.
Oh.
Like on the road, I guess.
Who's jaywalking?
I don't know.
We are.
So, no, running bear. Jaywalker, are you?
Tiptoe.
Do you see
Tiptoe.
what Eric said on the top?
No.
The thing about the recent CDC alert concerning Enoki mushrooms?
Oh, so that has to do with people eating mushrooms raw, and as I always tell everyone, don't eat
This
mushrooms raw.
Are you talking about the listeria outbreak?
People
Yeah.
died
Yeah.
because Enoki mushrooms are often just like placed in a hot pot, so they're barely cooked if at all. And so foodborne illnesses that get on like greens or
Sold by Sun.
that's why salads they had a big recall on salads and stuff. I don't think it's anything to be concerned about because it's just a thing, and people should just cook their mushrooms. You can't really digest mushrooms anyways without cooking them, so why would you want to fill your stomach with something you can't digest?
I enjoy putting uncooked eggs out on Easter egg hunts. Saltine, more power to you.
No, that's gross.
Well, it also said it was in a plastic bag, which sort of exasperated the issue of having everything.
I'm sure the
contained
issue
within-
was quite exasperated.
by plastic.
That's sweaty and yucky and
Exacerbated.
Exacerbated.
oh, goodness.
That's not a word, is
It
it?
is.
It is?
That's the word she was looking for. It's okay.
What word did she use?
I can't even say it.
Exacerbated? I
Oh, goodness.
I don't know.
English is my first
Cackleberries.
language.
Oh man. But yeah, so we got blown off course. But yeah, so now we're set up in the old co-op, which I think is super cool. And we're just starting this whole new adventure. But
From purple.
mean boys, that's. I mean, you don't even have to say mean.
You just say boys.
It's just what it is. Cackleberries. Called what?
Uncooked eggs, maybe?
Oh,
Cackleberries, Ben.
gotcha.
I like it. Yeah, cackleberries.
For the vine.
Oh man,
Um,
I'm gonna use that one. Cackleberries. That's that part of my lingo.
yeah. So with all that said, I got first pick of what space I wanted, and so I got 2 dock doors and the creepy basement. So that's cool.
It's a murder hole. That's what it looks like. The
It's
basement.
the old corn crib in the.
I think that part was actually processing the sunflowers.
Yeah.
Sunflower
As well, if
seeds.
you go down there, the pit is full of black hole
Yeah.
sunflower seeds. And it looks like they had what would have been like a conveyor and auger that would have gone up through the
Yeah,
wall
fed
and
it up into
fed
the
the trucks. Yeah.
So I said it was corn crib.
The corn crib is where the actual run-in was.
Yeah.
So you access the corn crib from outside, but then that panel that comes down from the side goes into the murder hole.
So that
The
hopper,
murder hole.
that hopper is where you like put sunflowers in, and then it ran through the sunflower seeds.
I guess so it looks like you saw the hole in the floor and that little funnel.
Mhm.
It looked like the funnel was set there, and that fed down into it. So it looks like they actually had equipment up top that they would just dump a bunch of stuff in there and process it through, and then it would pipe it right back up into the truck and pulled into the crib.
Mm.
It is really neat to see all of the equipment, and
Yeah.
it's really
The
cool.
monster that lives there eats sunflower seeds.
Yeah, it does.
It looks like a monster lives there. There's like spider webs that are just hanging down, covered in dust.
It's
They're like
creepy.
feet long, just like hanging there. Like,
Creepy cool,
yeah.
but creepy.
So I don't really have any use for that right now, but I'm going to have a shop. And so I know everybody's been complaining about I don't have the plans together for the baggers. You know, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's just life's been really busy for me, and it's remarkable. It takes about 10 times the effort to put the plans together as it does to just build the thing. Because every time I build one, it's like, oh, that was stupid, and I figure out a better way to do it. And then when I'm writing the plans, then I realize, oh, guess what? Now I have to rewrite freaking plans. So I'll get them done eventually. In the meantime, I'll be able to start building some stuff, and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of build out to do.
Yep.
Did he say we have to be there to receive the stuff? I assume
We're
do.
gonna have to, yeah.
Okay. All right. Jay said I'll leave spawn out on the table, but I will not be here to meet you in the morning.
Because we've got to be over there at 7.
Yeah. So,
I'll be here tonight.
yeah, Samantha will be here to meet you,
Kudos to you, Sam.
but Sam's got my
Bright
back.
and early.
But yeah, so are you guys gonna build low pressure sterilizers?
If you're talking about the atmospheric, which would be no pressure sterilizers, yes.
Sure. I have some ideas about what I'm gonna do, and I'm not gonna make any promises. Y'all at Mossy Creek Mushrooms truly fire up my entrepreneurial spirit. This chat has solidified that I really like y'all. We're similar minded. Thanks, y'all. Sam is super cool too. I agree
Thanks.
to all of the above.
I do too.
We are pretty awesome, just in general. But that's about it for me.
Yeah, guys, I think I'm gonna call it too. I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
I want to go play some Apex.
It's about 8 o'clock. What are we gonna eat?
Leftovers.
People.
Says the monster.
On that note,
Guys, keep spawning culture, y'all. Take care.
Bye.
yeah.
Yep.
Just do whatever you want to do. Don't listen to this guy.
Spawn that culture.
God, stop it. And